Well, as I said, the Immigration Department is set to roll out the welcome mat to foreign trade workers due to a shortage of builders in Australia, with pay rates for bricklayers in particular more than doubling due to the drought of workers, and some are charging as much as $2 for each brick they lay. The shortage of builders has convinced the Immigration Department to let employers import carpenters, electricians, plumbers and bricklayers from overseas over the next year. We've had a lot of response from you on that story this morning. From both sides, you know, we had one fellow who was a businessman who said that he's tried many times to get an apprentice and isn't managing to do so because they're not interested, and that's why we might have a problem with the shortage of tradies. Mark Morey is the Secretary of Unions New South Wales. He's on the line right now. Thanks for your time, Mark.
No worries, Warren. Good morning.
Well, I presume that you would be against this, bringing people in from overseas?
Look, we're certainly against bringing in skilled labour when we fail to actually train our own people up. I mean, I think what we've seen over the last 5 or 6 years across Australia is a decrease in skilled trades persons being trained at TAFE, and that simply undercut the market. And I think we spent a lot of time talking about the new economy, but I think sometimes we've got to remember we've got to focus on the current economy, and that's just not happening.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? But you're dead right in that regard. We're worried about IT and coding in schools and people going to university, but we forget about the fact that someone still has to lay the sewage pipes, and we still have to have someone to wire up the house electrically and someone to lay the bricks.
That's exactly right, and I think that's the thing we're seeing at the moment. We've lost, the mining boom's gone. We're back to an economy that's somewhat restrained. And we're looking around for skilled people, and they're just not around.
Yeah.
And so there's a glut of work now, and people are having to pay exorbitant amounts to get things done.
So would you support the importation of foreign workers as a temporary measure to overcome this problem?
Well, I think we've got it in the short term, but I think there needs to be some focus on business taking a leadership role over a longer period of time rather than just harping on about wages and conditions. They've got to take a leadership role like the union movement has, in ensuring that we have a base of tradespeople who can provide these jobs. We've called before on business, particularly government-funded projects, big government-funded projects, having a ratio of 1 to 4, 1 apprentice to every 4 tradespeople on those jobs. And I understand the argument of business say, well, you know, the first couple of years of apprentice is not able to do the work, we don't get our value for money, sure, but we need to have a look at how we structure our apprenticeships. We definitely need to have a look at the money we're paying them, because if I'm a kid who comes out of school, I can earn $80,000 banging away on a keyboard, or I'm earning 50% of an adult's wage hauling bricks or pipes or learning to be a plumber. I know which job I choose. Well,
I mean, we even had a comparison, say, presuming you're about 18 or whatever, that you can earn more packing shelves at a supermarket than you can being a first-year apprentice.
Absolutely. And this is the other thing that's not taken. We live in a very expensive city. And when kids are 18 and they're moving out, they don't get a discount on their rent. They don't get a discount on furniture they buy or anything like that. So the way the system's set up, it just drives kids away from doing apprenticeships and traineeships. It's just crazy stuff.
So how much is government to blame for this?
But we've seen, particularly in New South Wales, an assault on TAFE, cutting and slashing of teachers. I think we've lost over about 3,000 teachers since about 2012. Enrolments are down about 80,000. People are just walking away from TAFE because, A, the positions aren't there to get training, and 2, the teaching is just not, teachers aren't there to teach the trades. If you look in New South Wales, one of the few places in Sydney you can go to be a plumber at a TAFE is Randwick. That's just about it. So if you're travelling from the Blue Mountains or far out southwest Sydney, instead of going to your local TAFE, it's a 2-hour trip just to get there to study a couple of days a week.
Yeah, and look, there's an example. You don't get much more of a universally needed trade than that, do you?
No, absolutely not. And this is why I think government, and particularly business, have to have a good look at what they're saying about wages, conditions and training, and particularly if we want to get adults into apprenticeships who might want to change a career and skill up. How do we actually put a system in place that allows people to earn a decent income, sustains them above the poverty line, that allows them to train and get these skills.
Well, I take that as a point as well. Let's face it. Let's say, just as a very good figure to pick out would be the average wage, which is $70-something thousand at the moment. If you're earning that, you're not going to go and only earn 25 or 30, are you?
No, absolutely not. And I think that's one of the major roles government has to play, is putting in place positions within its departments that allow young people to be trained, at least for the first couple of years, their apprenticeship, and then they move out into business where they're far more productive. I understand business when they say we don't get anything out of young people in the first 2 years, but then government can't walk away from that and say, oh, well, we'll just leave it to the market.
Well,
this is a situation where people have to actually intervene and be creative about how we actually build apprenticeships in Australia.
We had a caller on earlier in the show who was an employer. I can't remember the trade, but anyway, he tried to put on an apprentice, and he claims, I've only got to take him at face value, that he's been through 32 apprentices and has never got one through to being a fully trained tradie.
No, and probably one of his main problems is that those young people, those apprentices, if they get offered better money, it's a buyer's market. They'll go. You know what I mean? Like, they're so...
But are they not... to put the boot on the other foot for a moment, is it not the case also that the apprentice is being very short-sighted, particularly if they're young? They don't yet have the problem of the mortgage. They don't yet have the responsibilities of maintaining a family, or usually they don't anyway. Is it the case that there's a generational I have to have it now attitude?
No, I think it's more goes back to if I'm earning 50% of the adult wage and someone says to me I can go and do a computer course and earn 90 grand in 6 months, which one are you going to jump at?
Okay.
But it goes back to what we are actually paying our apprentices while they're training, and it's not a livable wage. That's the problem.
Okay, thanks for your time. Appreciate it, Mark.
No, thanks very much, Warren. I appreciate it.
Mark Morey from Unions New South Wales, the Secretary of Unions New South Wales, and that's his take on what's been a quite interesting debate and topic this morning, bringing in foreign workers in what we would just see as quintessentially Aussie jobs. I mean, do you get any more quintessential than being a plumber or a brickie or a chippy for that matter?